Well, hi there, and welcome to Mars X3D. This is your buddy Dave, and if you're new to this channel, we're glad you're here. Check out the X3D tutorial down below. Most people can learn in just a couple of minutes, easy to do, and this channel won't make much sense to you otherwise. This is episode 2 of our 2022 review, where we dive into carving, rocks and other things which appear to have intelligent carving on them. We've selected the best samples of these, and we'd like you to have a look at them and see what you think. Here we go. Now we have a whole string of images that feature what might be lettering and some other strange items found by San Kotfix and Mike Desavelle and myself. We're going to start off with that boulder down in the right-hand corner. I find this one really compelling, not the least of which is that what seems to be lettering, so nice and even and square and parallel along that top right edge. But here's the thing. The rest of the boulder, if that's what it is, appears to have been affected by water over a long period of time. It has that fluid, smooth weathering that we find in alluvial deposits. And here's another thing. Those markings really do appear to be glyphs or letters of some kind, arranged in a very square and parallel fashion. But let's look at a few more examples from this and one other pan. Here's another one just a short distance away that looks as if it was part of the first one we looked at. It has the same type of lettering or glyphs, if you will, along one edge. And then look under the arrow. We have what appears to be an extruded triangular piece. So, are these parts of a broken temple, a broken building, or did this all just come about naturally? Well, let's look at some more and see what you think. Here's one from 3391 that Mike Desavelle pointed out. Now you see it right there inside the yellow target. So here we have basically the same thing. Those parallel arrangements of what appear to be glyphs or writing. Some of it even looks like Paleo-Hebrew. But that has to, you got to ask the question, are there erosional processes on Mars that are responsible for this? Is this something that we can just expect to see every time we turn over a boulder? Or are these parts of a broken building? Back in 3387 again, here's a really unusual chunk of something. Is it mechanical? Is it natural? Here again, we don't know. But that curved dish-like portion on the right has a raised portion of what appears to be lettering, bas-relief lettering, down the center. There are a couple other things, real strange things, that I'd like to show you in this particular pan. Let's wrap things up today with another very recent find by Sarah Runcie, who's kind of been on a roll lately. And of course there it is down center right, and we're going to take a closer look. Now, in my opinion, this is a really great find because it's so clear, it's close, and the carvings appear to be intelligently made. Now, there are some that say, oh, well, spirals occur in nature all over the earth, but, I've requested a couple of people who've made those statements to please show me some analogies here on Earth. I'd love to see them, but so far, no takers. Now, they do appear all over Earth. Let me show you. You see, the spiral is an ubiquitous item that we find in ancient cultures all over Earth. Sometimes they represented the power of nature or the cyclical nature of the universe or power in different ways, but the spiral is something that has been with us since the beginning. So it does beg the question, was our beginning on Mars? Here's one that Sarah Runcie pointed out just a couple days ago. And as you know, I'm not a big fan of faces or miniature Martians, that type of thing. And it's a definite bias on my part. There may well be faces, there may well be miniature Martians, but I haven't seen any really good evidence yet. And pareidolia is, we're so hardwired to see faces. We're hardwired to see that tiger's face in the bush before it can eat us. We're hardwired to see faces out of chaos. And I think that's usually what's happening. But let's take a closer look. So there you see it inside the box. And the question was asked the other day, if the camera angle was changed by 30 degrees, would the face still be there? Is it just a question of shading and light? Well, I don't know. It's very symmetrical. It really does look like a face. That is quite a mop of hair on top. And there are all kinds of markings in the rocks all around it that could be fossils or could be construed to be carvings, but usually, again, using Occam's razor, if we're seeing this geologically represented across the whole image, chances are it's simply erosion. But let's take a closer look anyway. So there you have it. It really looks like a face, I have to admit. But I'm going to withhold judgment. I'm going to let you decide what this actually is. Here's an interesting one pointed out by Martine Graney just the other day. Nev has been making some fantastic GMAX lately, and this one of 2633 is no exception. Now we're down inside the yellow target, and I'll bet you can't see anything from here. Isn't that nice? I mean, that's just about as nice an S as you could possibly draw, much less carve into stone. We find nothing similar around it, and I am once again quite curious. How does something like this happen naturally? Now, it could be a fossil of something, I suppose, but I'm inclined to think it's a carving. And before we leave, I wanted to point out this perfect disc in the background, in the shadow, divided into 3 equal sections and a little tab coming off the right side. What in the world is that? And we're going to wrap things up with something I found in 710 back in 214. I still think this is one of the best and clearest examples of possible civilization that I personally have found. Just look at that pointed piece and tell me you don't see markings which appear to indicate intelligent agency. We have squares and circles arranged within each other, right angles. It appears to be a carved monument. And by the way, look at the stone in back, the big boulder. That also is covered with markings. And if you go over to the right at about the 2 o'clock, there's another cube, a segmented cube, just sitting there. These are beautiful finds, in my opinion, not because I made them, but because they so clearly indicate the possibility of an ancient civilization. We'll wrap things up today with an intriguing find by Rami Bar Ilan, straight from Percy, Sol 96. Now, what is it? Well, I don't know, but it doesn't look natural. But wait, as they say, there's more. So, now what do you say? 3 images that are, in many ways, very close to being identical. And the one on the right, it really looks like a hooded monk to me, but more importantly, see the position of the head? And, well, let me just get straight to the bottom line. This looks like a typical Madonna and child pose. You know, a mother holding a baby and looking down fondly at it. Everything's badly eroded, and it may not, of course, be what it is at all. It might not be a statue, but isn't it curious that we have these 3 different items that look so similar? Well done, Rami. Here are a couple I dug out of Nev's GMAC of 3458. Our first one is up there on the slope. Is that worn carving we're looking at on this boulder? Here's the deal. That rock looks like it's been subjected to either running water over a long period of time, or it has been purposely smoothed to do the bas-relief carving of what might be letters on the upper right. Could those just be harder portions of stone that eroded differently than the rest of the boulder? Yeah, even though my personal confirmation bias is reluctant to admit it. That's why this one only gets rated as an artifact candidate. And look at this standalone oogie. How cool is that? And how exactly did it form? I love Mars. It's almost as weird as I am. This beautiful GMAC by Nev T led researcher Martine Graney to a very interesting find just a couple days ago. Martine's find is on the left there, but before we dive into it, I wanted to also point out that nice cube and that very suspicious-looking formation on the right. You can see a cross-like formation on the right side of the rock, at least 3 equal arms with a circular center. There's the start of a 4th arm going down, but it's not very distinct. Here's the thing, though. How is it that the vertical arm not only goes up, crossing the horizontal bedding planes of the rock, but also has parallel outlines, as do the others? That shouldn't happen, at least not in nature. As we look at earthly analogs, we find that the ancient Byzantine cross is very similar in structure. And the ancient Celtic cross is even closer in appearance to what we're finding here. I'd say we have a solid artifact candidate in this one. We looked at something a moment ago that was kind of between old-fashioned erosion and possible writing. Here's another one I came across in Nev's GMAC of 3456, but this time it's a lot more clear. This is interesting to me for a couple of reasons. That so-called writing lies within clearly parallel lines, just like we see in so many ancient carvings here on Earth. The figures within it, while still too blurry to make a clean call, certainly have forms and shapes which might possibly be informational in nature. But look how that kind of ear sticks out in front on the right side. I can't help wondering, If this is just erosion, how did that ear stay in place and not break off? The stone itself is roughly cubical and badly battered. But what intrigues me is that arch on the top right. It's so symmetrical that it's hard to simply assign this one to chance. For all you proud weirdos out there, you know who you are. Stay safe and stay weird. Stay tuned for episode number 3, Mechanisms.